joining us tonight on another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I am your host once again for another fabulous little half hour. We're going to talk all things motorsports because there was no shortage of action this past weekend. We had NASCAR in Nashville, we had IndyCar and IMSA in Detroit, and now coming up this weekend, we've got a full slate of racing for you. NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, dirt tracks, short tracks, whatever your fancy is, it's probably running this weekend. And not only that, but we've got a couple of weeks still to go before the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which is always a thriller, always one of the top and best races of the year. So let's go ahead real quick and let's jump right on into the news because there was no shortage of it from this past week. As always, we'll begin in the world of Formula One, where we've got some pretty interesting news coming out of the FIA. FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem has reportedly proposed that the FIA get rid of term limits for current FIA presidents. Currently, those rules dictate that a president can only serve a maximum of 12 years, whether consecutive or not. Ben Sulayem now is saying he thinks that should be done away with. We should no longer have term limits within the motorsports highest governing body. That is something that we'll have to watch and see if that ends up happening. Of course, this is just a proposal by Ben Sulayem, but it is also heavily implied that he is pushing this pretty heavily amongst those in the FIA. So we'll have to see if this rule does get changed and what that means for the future of the governing body of motorsport going forward. Also, in the world of Formula One, this is very important. If you're going to watch this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix, be aware that active aero will not be active for this weekend's race. The FIA said that the change was done primarily in the name of safety after there was reportedly a risk that the cars could become too fast at the exit of the tunnel. So this race will run with fixed aerodynamic surfaces and no straight mode, which again is quite surprising given the fact that it is quite hard to pass on Monaco, and you don't have anything that even resembles what we had last year in DRS. No DRS zones, no straight mode zones, no active aero. This could make for a very processional, possibly, Monaco Grand Prix. Not that it hasn't been in the past, but we could very well see passing be difficult again. Whereas I think in the last couple of years, at the very least, you had that straightaway with DRS that could potentially open up a pass into turn one, but now we won't be seeing that, so it'll be really up to a big test of how these Formula One cars, how these new regulations really race when it just comes down to horsepower and no aerodynamic power. So that'll be at least make for, I think, an interesting storyline for the Monaco Grand Prix. Again, I wouldn't necessarily change your expectations if you are planning on watching the Monaco Grand Prix this weekend. So just be aware, hey, this could be another processional race. You might want to just catch qualifying. But also, we're race fans. We'll watch it no matter how little passing there is at the very least. So something to watch there. Also, this weekend in the Monaco Grand Prix, McLaren will have a special livery on their car because the team is celebrating their 1,000th Formula One race start. Though I believe some people have counted that it might actually be 999. But McLaren is going with the fact that it's 1,000, so that's what I'm going to go with at the very least. But don't be surprised if you see the papaya cars looking a little bit silver as well coming up this weekend. But as of right now, we are recording this episode a little bit early, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But we're going to go ahead here and move on into the world of IndyCar because there was quite a bit of news from this weekend at the Detroit Grand Prix. Notably so, Chevrolet has seemingly fixed its reliability issues after multiple Chevy drivers suffered failures throughout the month of May. GM President Mark Reuss said Saturday morning that there was a supplier issue with the valve and the valve guides, noting that it was a coating issue that would cause the valve to, quote, chuck off the seat. A very interesting description and explanation there. He also said this during the pre-race warm-up show on FS1 before the IndyCar Grand Prix got going. So it looks like right now Chevrolet might have fixed some of their reliability problems, but that might help Chevrolet, but that's not exactly going over well in the rest of the paddock, because Scott Dixon attributed his retirement from this past weekend's Detroit Grand Prix on a, quote, another joyous hybrid failure. Apparently, according to Dixon, the issue happened early in the race, which caused him to be unable to use his deploy. And then later in the race, Dixon said the hybrid was having trouble with regen, making it harder for the car to obviously regenerate energy under braking. That is not good when a lot of the car is built around this hybrid. Hybrids are getting a lot of criticism from IndyCar drivers and from the paddock. You just have to kind of hope that this will go away when the series finally has a new engine formula and a new car coming up here in 2028. But until then, the drivers seem to not be too happy with the way the hybrids are performing. Meanwhile, as of Monday, fans can now request free tickets to the upcoming Freedom 250 street race in Washington, D.C. The request window will be open through this Sunday, June 7th, and winners will be notified beginning Monday, June 8th. So it's important to note this is kind of like a lottery system / sweepstakes. You kind of enter and say, yes, I'd like free tickets for this, and winners are chosen at random, and if you get chosen, you'll be notified via email that, yes, hey, you're going to get free tickets to this event. Otherwise, you might have to pay, I believe. So something to note there if you're living in the D.C. area, or if you're planning to be in the D.C. area coming up later on this summer. Hey, who knows? Maybe put your name in there and see if you can maybe get some free tickets for a very interesting and special IndyCar race that may or may not be a one-off. We've heard some things floating around the news that says this upcoming race is likely to be just a one-off event to celebrate America's 250th anniversary, or it could be something that comes back in the near future. We'll see. Not exactly sure of what that timeline looks like or what that would look like anyway. If we get more developments, believe me, you'll hear it right here on the Racing Report. But that is it for IndyCar news for this week. Let's go ahead now and jump into the world of Formula E, because there is a big announcement that happened this week in the world of Formula E, as the series has announced that the preseason testing for next season will be held at the Circuito del Jarama, a track that previously held preseason testing back in 2024. It will also be the first time the new Gen 4 chassis will take competitive laps. So definitely something to watch. That is, of course, a permanent circuit. Could be very interesting to see the new Gen 4 chassis running out there, see how fast it gets. Definitely will be a test session that won't really want to be missed by a lot of fans. So just letting you know that if you're planning on watching Formula E testing, or if you're just desperate for some kind of motorsports during the November-December kind of lull period. But that is it for our first segment of the show. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. But when we come back, we're going to discuss news and notes out of the world of supercars, quite some interesting developments, as well as the first big silly season domino to officially fall in the world of NASCAR. All of that's coming up here after these messages. Don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. Welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks again so much for sticking with us through that break. We just recently finished up talking about the open wheel news. Let's talk about the closed wheel news, or fendered card news. We'll begin in the world of supercars, which this is very interesting, and it might not have a lot of relevance to most fans or really anybody outside of Oceania, but I think it's interesting, so we're going to talk about it anyway because this is my show. Supercars is reportedly looking at a, quote, hybrid approach to transporting cars and equipment to New Zealand for the rounds in Taupo and Christchurch. This is beginning next year. Now, with the Australian Grand Prix expected to be pushed back to April. Now, this is according to speedcafe.com. Supercars is proposing that the equipment that is not needed for the sprint rounds in Melbourne be transported via cargo freight, over the sea, so that then the cars can be transported via air freight. Now, this is essentially being done as a way to kind of keep costs under wraps while also allowing for more freedom and quicker turnaround time so that there's not as much of a gap between the rounds that are in New Zealand, because obviously the big problem that we've had is we've had these couple of New Zealand rounds and then we've had to wait either for them or after them for the next round because of all of the equipment and the cars that need to get shipped. And right now they're only doing this via the sea. So if they can get some of these cars loaded up into a big old freight airliner and flown all the way to New Zealand, that might make things a lot easier and quicker, as well as save the team some money. So this is a very interesting proposal by Supercars right now. Not exactly sure if this is going to go through, but I think it does make for a good option because the long wait times between the New Zealand rounds are kind of disappointing, even though it's great to have the New Zealand rounds and they are incredibly necessary for the health of the championship. Also something new in the world of Supercars that I think we should talk about. So a couple of weeks ago, or last week I should say, 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about the upcoming Supercars races at Symonds Plains in Tasmania, we noted that the Sunday race had been extended to basically kind of force a 3-stop race. So Supercars is apparently looking at this for the future. And it's a very interesting reasoning for this. So Supercars is reportedly reviewing a possible 3-stop format for upcoming races amid concerns over fuel economy following the change of their fuel blend for the 2026 season. Now, it is possible that the races in Townsville, Perth, and Ipswich could all either have a third compulsory pit stop added or see a reduction in race length. So this is basically done to prevent these races from being fuel mileage races. They want the series and some of the teams as well, they want this to be truly a sprint cup. It's not I think Jamie Whincup used the term, it's a sprint cup, not a fuel conservation cup, which is a very interesting approach to it, I think, but that's where Supercars is coming from right now. There's been a lot of going back and forth. The Chevrolets say, well, the Fords, they don't get that good economy. The Fords say, well, the Toyotas aren't getting good economy. Toyotas are saying, well, the Chevrolets aren't getting good economy. Everybody's kind of talking over each other, but it just seems to come down to they're just burning more fuel than they have in the past, and so it's resulted in these fuel economy races, and the series doesn't necessarily like that outside of the Enduros, which I guess I can understand. Either way, this would be a very interesting way to kind of combat that by either forcing a third mandatory pit stop or reducing the race length entirely, just so that they can make sure that it's not a fuel economy run to the end. So, very interesting. If you're a fan of fuel economy races, Supercars definitely does not have your best interest in mind, but either way, to each their own, I will say to that. Meanwhile, in Supercars news, Tickford Racing says that it will not enter a wildcard entry for the upcoming Bathurst 1000 coming up later this fall, but instead the team will enter a wildcard entry at Townsville, Queensland, and at the Bend. So something to look forward to there. Tickford Racing will not have a wild card for this year's Bathurst 1000. And finally, this is something we've been kind of covering for the last several months here on the Racing Report about the Supercars TV broadcast lineup. Very controversial move last year when Mark Scaife and Neil Crompton were kind of pushed away and pushed out of the commentary booth for this new rotating cast of analysts and commentators. Well, now it appears that the series is expected to end that rotation of TV commentators on their broadcast and name a permanent play-by-play host as soon as after the upcoming race in Darwin. So that is something to note. We don't exactly know who will lead those broadcasts right now, but it is expected that Garth Tander will remain in the analyst position. But as far as having this rotating cast of play-by-play commentators, that seems to be coming to an end. Though again, we don't know who is going to get that permanent job yet. As soon as we do, we will bring it to you right here on the Racing Report. On that note, let's go ahead here and talk about the world of NASCAR, because there's plenty of it. And like I said, there's some silly season dominoes that are falling. So get ready. We're going to talk about that here right now. We'll begin, though, with a very interesting piece of news. The National Motorsports Appeals Panel has upheld Ryan Preece's penalty for contact with Ty Gibbs during last month's race in Texas. Preece was fined $50,000 and then docked 25 championship points for the incident. But in their ruling, the panel said, quote, neither side clearly proved their point, but Mr. Preece's comments show that he chose to not cut his competitor any breaks, unquote. That is a very interesting comment by the panel and interesting ruling, given the fact that most drivers don't tend to cut their competitors any breaks, especially when they're racing them hard. And I feel almost like I think Ryan Preece as well and other drivers and pundits, I'll say, kind of feel like that is a little bit of an odd ruling in the world of NASCAR when that seems to just be what happens. You know, you don't typically cut a guy a break if they're racing you the way that you don't like. If they're racing you hard, if they're cutting you off, if they're blocking you, you know, you're not going to cut them any breaks, and you really shouldn't be penalized for doing that. At least that's what Ryan Preece is arguing after the penalty was upheld. So all of this is kind of interesting, but of course Ryan Preece not happy because he's now $50,000 poorer and 25 points, has 25 less points than he had prior to the race at Nashville. We'll be watching that and see what happens if this sets a precedent for future rulings, which is what I'll be interested in following. Meanwhile, here is that first silly season domino that fell over the course of last week. 23XI Racing has announced that Corey Heim will drive for the team full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series beginning in 2027. He will drive the number 35 Toyota and replace Riley Herbst, who is currently linked to Legacy Motor Club for their third charter that they are acquiring beginning next season, although that has not been formally announced. It could potentially push that announcement a little bit further, but as of right now, Corey Heim will be moving up to the Cup Series full-time and with 23XI Racing beginning in 2027. Meanwhile, hey, if you're going to this weekend's race in Michigan like I am, that's the little thing. That's why we're recording this on Tuesday, because I have taken the rest of the week off, and I will be in Michigan this weekend enjoying the races, not necessarily as a reporter, but more so as a fan, just because, hey, it's not like I can get credentials. It's hard to get credentials if you're not a traveling media person. If you're someone like me who really mainly stays in one place and doesn't really cover the series full-time, it's not like WTHR is going to send me there. If they did, it'd be cool, but they're not gonna. So I take the week off and go up there and enjoy it, and it's a nice little fun time. But someone you will be seeing this weekend will be J.J. Yaley, because he will be in the number 44 car for NY Racing, and he will have sponsorship from Fanatics Casino, and that is a 2-race deal for them. They will also race in the upcoming race at Chicagoland, also with that same sponsor. In the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Nick Sanchez will be back in 2 weeks' time at Pocono, because Peterson Racing has announced that he will race for the team in 4 upcoming races, like I said, beginning at Pocono, and then again at Chicagoland, Atlanta, and Indianapolis. He will replace Austin Green in those races. Green said that he was obviously disappointed with the decision, but will still stick by the team and will be at the races that Sanchez will be in the car. Now, that's a big deal, considering the fact that Nick Sanchez has not had a ride since AM Racing abruptly withdrew from Rockingham and then closed their doors not long later. So at least it's good to see Sanchez finally getting back in a car, though it is a little bit of a disappointment that it is at the expense of Austin Green. Meanwhile, for Hoosier fans, this is for all of you in Indiana right now, Connor Daly was announced by Colleague Racing as the driver of their free agent truck for next month's race at Indianapolis Raceway Park in the Truck Series. That will be Connor Daly's first NASCAR start since 2024, but it will be his second start in the Truck Series at IRP. So, hey, Connor Daly, fresh off another good Indianapolis 500 showing, even though he doesn't have a full-time ride in IndyCar right now, at least he can look forward to another truck start at IRP. That is it for this weekend's news, this week's news of the week, however we want to say it. We're going to go ahead here and take our second break of the show. But when we come back, we're going to detail and break down everything that happened during this past weekend of racing. And we're going to get you ready for everything going on this upcoming weekend. Because believe me, there's plenty of races to watch. Almost a race every hour of the day, basically, whether it be in Monaco, whether it be in Michigan, in St. Louis, or anywhere across the world. So, more Racing Report coming up after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks again so much for sticking with us through that break. Let's go ahead here real quick and talk about some of the weekend that we had. It was a great weekend of racing. Very glad that the rain held off for most of it, especially in Nashville. Beautiful weather, though, up in Detroit. Goodness gracious. Couldn't have asked for a better weekend there for IndyCar and IMSA. But we'll start off in the world of NASCAR, recapping some of those races. In the Truck Series on Friday night, had, again, a little bit of a rain delay, but the race was able to get in where we were able to finish all of the laps. And believe me, it was worth the wait. What a finish. I mean, Lane Riggs coming out and wins the race. So he's won now his second race in a row. But the way he did it was thrilling. I think what was so fun about it was just the difference in tires. You had Rajah Caruth running up front. He had old tires. He was staying out. He was trying to make it work. Then you had Chandler Smith, who had stopped a little bit later, and he's Lane Riggs' teammate. He stopped a little bit later, has a little bit fresher tires, but still they're pretty worn. And then you had Lane Riggs, who stopped later than both of those guys, charged all the way up through the field on those fresh tires. I didn't think he was going to catch the leaders, honestly. I thought it was going to be a pretty tall order for Riggs to get there, but man, did he get there, and he got there with time to spare and passed both his teammate Smith and Rajah Caruth to score the victory. Like I said, can't ask for anything better. That's tire strategy to a T, and that's what makes a lot of that racing so much fun. And to be fair, Caruth held on for all it was worth on those worn tires and still came home with a pretty decent finish. So a great thriller in the Truck Series race. That set up another thriller in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, because it looked like for the longest time there that rookie Brent Cruz was going to cruise to his first ever series victory, and it's just his first couple of starts. He's only been racing since he turned 18, and so this is a big deal to have him going out there and leading so many laps. But in the end, it was Justin Allgaier who hunted him down and raced. They raced side by side for several laps there, giving the fans in Nashville one heck of a show. But ultimately, it was Justin Allgaier who came home victorious for his fourth O'Reilly Auto Parts Series victory of the year. And after that, it was kind of interesting. He said he was thinking about retiring. This was probably going to be his last season in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, but now he's reevaluating all of that. He might even come back and continue to do this. Apparently, very few people even want him to retire, including his wife. And usually it's the family that's making those calls and saying, hey, please retire. We want you to spend more time with us. But no, his wife is saying, keep going. You still got this. You can win more championships and races and go for it. So Justin Allgaier, we might see him back next year, even though as of earlier this year, he was thinking about calling it quits later this year. So very cool there. And then in the Cup Series, boy, let me tell you something. Had a little bit of a rain delay, about an hour's worth of rain delay again. So all three races affected in some way, shape, or form by rain. But for the Cup Series, it was worth the wait, because let me tell you something. That right there was a classic NASCAR event. Lots of attrition, lots of different tire strategies, lots of different fuel strategies. I don't even think the stages really did much to alter or affect how the race was going to play out. And it was really interesting at the very end to see if Zane Smith's gamble was going to work. I mean, Smith had way worn tires, had very low fuel, but according to the broadcast and according to his pit wall, he could have potentially made it on fuel. But then the question would have been, would he have been caught by Christopher Bell? Well, it looked like he was going to, and he did then get passed by Christopher Bell before a caution came out for Chris Buescher. Brake rotors being blown, that was the story of the race. But ultimately, at the end of it, it came down to a less than 10 to go dash to the finish. Denny Hamlin, who got penalized at the start for jumping the start, came back, beat both his teammates Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe to win at Nashville and finally score a Gibson guitar. Good for Hamlin there. In the world of IndyCar, we had Alex Palou winning his 4th race of the season. Also, he earned his 3rd straight pole position, by the way. Palou is really... He's coming back. He might get a 5th title this year if nothing changes. And believe me, he survived a lot of that chaos. Lots of chaos. Crashes, everything. Disappointment for David Malukas, who had started last after he crashed in practice, came all the way back and was looking at a podium finish until contact with Mick Schumacher, who missed the breaking point there and took both of them out. That was disappointing. But overall, Alex Palou continuing to extend his championship lead as we go into the upcoming race here in Gateway. IMSA was also in Detroit. It was also quite the crash fest, but in the end, it was the Cadillac Whelen team of Jack Aitken and Earl Bamber taking home the victory in the GTP class. Let's go ahead quickly and wrap up the show with everything coming up this weekend. We've got NASCAR, a big weekend in Michigan. The ARCA race is set for Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern on FS2. The truck race will take place Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1, with the Cup race beginning Sunday at 3 p.m. on Prime. And I promise this is at 3 p.m. on Prime, unlike what I said last week. I apologize if anybody tuned into Prime at 3 o'clock and thought there was going to be a race. That was my bad. IndyCar is in Gateway. That race is going to be a late one, a Sunday night race, 9 o'clock Eastern Sunday on Fox. Meanwhile, F1, F2, and F3 are all in Monaco. It's going to be a crowded paddock there. The Formula 3 sprint race is set for 4:45 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, with the feature race in F3 set for 1:55 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday morning. The Formula 2 sprint race will take place at 8:15 a.m. on Saturday, with the F2 feature race taking place at 3:35 a.m. then on Sunday, with the Monaco Grand Prix set for 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. And of course, the F2 and F3 races will be available to be watched on F1 TV, with the Grand Prix airing on Apple TV. The High Limit Sprint Cars have quite the slate for this week. Beginning on Thursday, they're going to go to Gondik Lost Speedway in Wisconsin. That'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. On Friday, they're going to be at I-94 Speedway up in Minnesota, also at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And then on Saturday, they'll be in Dakota Speedway in North Dakota. That'll also be at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. All 3 of those races will be on Flow Racing. In the world of Outlaws, Friday, they'll be at Hartford Speedway in Michigan. That'll be the hot lap start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on Saturday, they'll be at the Plymouth Dirt Track up in Wisconsin. Hot laps begin there at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with Sunday, the World of Outlaws wrapping up their weekend at Angel Park Speedway in Wisconsin. The hot laps begin at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All 3 of those races will be on Dirt Vision. And then finally, the ARCA West is in Tri-City Raceway. That'll be Saturday at 10:45 p.m. on Flow. Of course, all times Eastern. That is it for this week's episode of The Racing Report. I want to say, everybody, thanks so much again for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week to talk about all of this weekend's races and preview what's coming up in the 24 Hours of Le Mans coming up next weekend. So, for WTHR, my name is Rob Peeters, and this has been The Racing Report.